Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Please make it a point to like and share this video so that your friends can join into the conversation. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook so that you can receive all of our alerts. Also, please remember fpcgear.com, fpcgear.com. It is the best way for you to help support us, support the cause, and look good doing it. Cool t-shirts, other cool gear. Go there, check it out, support us. Know that every penny goes to the fight for your constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Moving right along, let's go ahead and get into the conversation. So, you know, every single time there is a mass shooting, we always hear the same exact thing. We always hear we need to add more laws. We need more laws. We need to ban guns. We need to restrict how people can get access to guns. We need to restrict the kind of guns, the sale of guns. We need to, in every way, we need to try and find a way to make it so that law-abiding citizens are not in a position to be able to defend themselves when, when these individuals come a-hunting. When they decide that they're going to come after us law-abiding citizens, they want to make sure that we are in fact disarmed. And the funny part about it is that it seems like the more laws we pass, the easier we seem to make it. We seem to make it for those who seem to want to do harm. And it raised an interesting question in my mind, and that is, you know, when you look at many of these shootings, when you take the time to actually let the dust settle and see what actually occurred, you come to find out a few things. And one of those things that you come to find out is that at the major crux of it is a failure of government, right? When I say government failure, I mean at some point, government, whether it was the laws that are put in place or just law enforcement, whatever it is, was at a point where they could have done something, where they could have intervened prior to some of these incidents taking place. Here in California alone, probably one of the best examples had to do with it just happened last year in Tehama County. An individual who was already out on bail for brandishing a weapon and threatening someone with a weapon, who was supposed to have turned in all of their firearms, wound up going on a shooting rampage. And the interesting thing was that not long before this happened, neighbors were calling the police and complaining that this guy was out all hours of the night shooting. But nothing happened. Police were supposed to make sure that he didn't have any firearms. He had gone and made some home-built firearms. But once again, despite reports that a guy who wasn't supposed to have firearms was shooting in the middle of the night, nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. Right? You've got another case. You guys probably remember the case of Omar Mateen. This is a guy who was a security guard. I believe he was approved for a concealed carry permit. Now this all goes through you go through various sorts of background checks, and it leads one to wonder, when you go through these sorts of background checks and they do these sorts of investigations, what are the sorts of things that they are looked for that should be a red flag as to whether or not someone is a danger, right? Whether or not someone is a potential threat.
We first became aware of him in May of 2013. He was working as a contract security guard at a local courthouse, and he made some statements that were inflammatory and contradictory that concerned his co-workers about terrorism. First, he claimed family connections to Al-Qaeda. He also said that he was a member of Hezbollah, which is a Shia terrorist organization that is a bitter enemy of the so-called Islamic State, ISIL. He said he hoped that law enforcement would raid his apartment and assault his wife and child so that he could martyr himself.
Now, this guy was, once again, passed a federal background check in order to be able to work in a courthouse as a security in a courthouse. This is what they knew about him before the shooting. And yet somehow, some way, they were in no position to do they could do absolutely nothing. There was no warning signs. Once again, what former FBI Director Comey was just reading was a list of the things that they knew about him before the shooting. Now, you cannot tell me that there were not some major red flags there. But that wasn't the only case. Take, for example, these folks. All right, these were the San Bernardino shooters. All right, what we knew about these folks was that basically she had come from, she had attended a school that was that was a school that was in an area that was known to, she immigrated here. They got married. She immigrated here, but they knew she had terrorist ties. Or I won't say terrorist. She knew that there were questionable ties. They knew that there were some suspect stuff in her background, where she was from, where she went to school, and all of her connections. Yet somehow she was able to immigrate into the United States, having already been radicalized. That's the thing you got to understand. She had already been radicalized before she immigrated to the United States. Government was in a position to make sure that she didn't have an opportunity to be involved in any of this. How do we know? Because she would have never been a citizen. She should have never been allowed to come here, based just on the stuff that they knew about her before she immigrated here. Government was in a position to do something, and they did nothing. And thus you had the shooting in San Bernardino, which, by the way, was also an issue because it did occur. It occurred at a government facility, right, at a regional center, where the security was unarmed. There was another place where government was in a position to do something and didn't. And once again, it cost lives. But that's not the only incident. Let's talk about the Parkland shooter. All right, let's talk about this individual. Let's talk about the fact that not only did they fail in this case at the local level, right? This wasn't just a fail at the local level where the local law enforcement had noted that this guy was a problem and recommended that he be taken into custody. But nothing happened. Nothing happened. But then there was also issues where, the FBI had been notified about comments that were made comments were made about this individual, let me clarify. This individual made comments on a YouTube post where he said he wanted to be a school shooter. The FBI was notified months before, and nothing happened. And then there was this.
So there is outcry tonight for a new system to be put in place at the FBI regarding its tip line. Take a look at how they handled a call less than 2 months ago from a woman who said she was very close to the shooter. She describes his disturbing social media posts and how he likes to cut up animals. The FBI employee responding, The woman says he lives with guns and is, quote, going to explode. The FBI employee responds, okay. He has a, quote, whole bag with all kinds of rifles and he's going to buy more. The operator responds, okay. The caller thinks about Cruz getting into a school and just shooting the place up. And she is met with, thanks. So if anybody else has questions, they can call you back. Is that correct?
That's how that whole thing went down. I mean, folks, I'm trying to get you to see here that here were, once again, multiple occasions. Sutherland, Texas. The guy had been discharged for domestic violence. And the information never got into the background check system, never got into the federal system, so he was able to go buy a firearm. My whole thing here is that case after case after case, we're looking at failures of government to do their job. And yet somehow, some way, the argument over and over again is, well, we need more government. We need more laws. We need to do more in terms of we need to have the government do more or give more laws. We need to impose laws against law-abiding citizens because, well, the government's not doing what it's supposed to do now. One idea that was proposed, and I found in a USA Today article about a month or so ago, was the fact that maybe these individuals who run these departments, maybe the agencies, maybe there needs to be some sort of consequence when you fail to do your job. Right now, it's almost impossible to sue a governmental agency when they either pass laws or regulations or they fail to do their jobs. What came out of this was largely it was a lawsuit. The article specifically is speaking to a lawsuit where the government had the opportunity to potentially stop a mass shooting, and yet they failed, and yet they weren't able. This individual should have been in a position where they weren't able to purchase a firearm. There were things that were in place that would have kept them from being able to purchase a firearm, and they failed. Government completely and utterly failed. Right now in the state of California, we have this APPS program that we brag about where, it's armed prohibited persons list. People who aren't supposed to have guns, who aren't supposed to have guns but have guns, right? We have a list of those people. Now, mind you, these are only people who legally purchased firearms and then later, for one reason or another, lost their right to keep and bear arms, whether it was because of a restraining order. They keep saying that they're felons. They're not all felons. Whether it's they're the subject of a restraining order, whether it was a 5150 mental health hold, or it was because they committed a felony. Now, in some cases they are felons, or a prohibiting misdemeanor, and we do have some prohibiting misdemeanors in California. But they brag about this. There's 10,000 people who have firearms who aren't supposed to, and yet they can't seem to get the guns out of their hands. Now, mind you, I will give them some credit. It's down from where it was. Now, the only reason, though, that it's down is because they actually reached out to a number of these folks who didn't even know that they were on the list, some of which weren't supposed to be on the list. So that's one of the reasons why the list is down. But they're just now getting to the point where actually going after and taking firearms out of the hands of people who aren't supposed to have them. But once again, we're going back to this whole idea of failure of government. And I get it. You know what? Government is not perfect because government is run by people. But the answer to government failure is not more government. It's not pass more laws restricting the rights of law-abiding citizens. It's fix where you need to fix government. Right? And by the way, don't disarm me. If we know that government is going to be fallible in some of these cases, if we know that they don't necessarily have the ability to stop all of these cases, well, guess what? Don't put me in danger. I find it very frustrating when I go into an environment where I have been disarmed. I am not allowed to conceal carry on a school campus. But at the same time, I can't sue the school district if I wind up getting injured or shot or harmed because because you've made it so that I'm not able to defend myself. That just doesn't sound right. I can't hold that the officials at that school cannot be held liable because they disarmed me, they put me in a position of danger, and they cannot be held accountable. Something is wrong with this picture, and it needs to be corrected. I hope you folks will stand up with me and the Firearms Policy Coalition as we do whatever we can to try and make sure that these things are fixed and corrected. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. I thank you so much for tuning in. I thank you for being a part of the fight for our civil rights. Remember, we've got to use them or we will lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.